is ATL Day Ones, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. And it starts now.
Welcome into ATL Day Ones with Jarvis and Tenitra, and want to say thank you for making ATL Day Ones your first listen of the day. Remember, we're free and available wherever you download your podcast, and wherever you download your podcast, make sure that you leave us a 5-star review. We really appreciate you. People have been dropping 5-star reviews in the comments, so you can drop those in as well, because guess what? What we don't do on this show is hide greatness, because that's what we are. We speak it into existence. We believe in that on this show. So yeah, if you have a problem with that, do pound sand, kick rocks, all that good stuff. But also want to let you all know that we're on your Fire Stick. We're on Roku as well. So yes, ATL Day Ones and Locked On Sports Atlanta is expanding. So make sure you check us out on all platforms. There is no excuse why you shouldn't be rocking with us Monday through Friday. Now, T, I think there's something when it comes to Atlanta Braves, when it comes to certain situations, we're just going to have to get used to it. We'll talk about that. And are the Georgia Bulldogs better than they were last year? We'll discuss. And last but not least, in for the culture, I think this guy, his name is Robert Sarver. This is probably the best decision he's ever made in his life. And it's by far. We'll talk about that, how far that is, how deep that is, and for the culture. But first, T, we had to talk about last night. The Braves get the dub against the Washington Nationals. Kenley Jansen is what I was talking about. We're going to get used to. He scared us again. I'm talking about by the most weirdest way, by bunts. Like, people were literally bunting for hits and getting on base. And then, of course, you got the error by Matt Olson. And it was just a lot going on, T. But, obviously the Braves end up getting the save. Kenley Jansen has that meme book like, yeah, I got it done. I don't care how you feel about it.
Right.
But, I just think that, this is our Will Smith. This is our 2022 version of Will Smith, and we're going to have to roll with it as we get ready to ramp up for the playoffs.
You really will. And it is going to be okay, because somehow, some way, I'm just going to keep telling myself that. But so listen, when a team strategizes with a bunt, sometimes that is very difficult to kind of manage for. And hey, Kenley Jansen escaped. That's all that matters. Yeah. A W is what the Braves got last night, which is a good thing. But I wanted to go back to what you said about Matt Olson, because we just spoke about him yesterday and how, yes, he is trending up a little bit, but I believe he was the guy that you chose outside of course, Acuna Jr., when we talked about Dansby, Austin, and, just when we looked at and framed the top of the order, essentially, Matt Olson was the one you called out and said, hey, you have to produce at the plate, because what you do on defense, what you do when you're not at the plate, it's not as substantive or meaningful as what Austin Riley does at third, or what Dansby does at short, or what Ronald Acuna Jr. does in right field. You at first base, you at the plate, you at the base. So what happened last night, that error is unacceptable, because Matt Olson, pretty much, 0-1 last night? So At the end of the day, if that's what you're going to be at the plate, you most certainly can't have errors. And we know, even looking at the bigger picture, as things really start to wind down and the Braves are trying to use every opportunity that they have to be like a tune-up for the Mets, no errors allowed.
Yeah, no doubt. You can't have that type of stuff. That's the type of stuff that will get you beat in the playoffs. And, of course, Matt Olson, in your first year, you do not want to be the reason or the main reason why the Braves lose a playoff game, because guess what Freddie Freeman is doing over there on the other side of the world, over there of this country? He is doing Freddie Freeman things, and we definitely don't want you to have to feel the wrath of Atlanta PTSD, when it comes to professional sports. But Arthur Smith has some interesting things to say when it comes to the start of 2021 versus the start of 22. We'll get to that, but before we get to that, T, tell the folks about what's going on at betonline.net.
So betonline.net, that is the place where you go for all of your sports betting info. So if it's the NFL and you're kind of wondering, what's that line looking like for the Falcons and Seahawks for this weekend? Both teams 0-2, trying to get their first dub of the year. Go to betonline.net. It'll give you the information on what the line looks like, who's favored, and how that line moves on a day-to-day basis. Same thing for the NBA. Jarvis and I spoke to you guys on our Tuesday episode about the fact that on CBSSports.com, 6 Hawks made the top 100 for their list of top players for 2022. So then the question becomes, do those kind of articles and that kind of information move the needle as far as the Hawks being a favorite to maybe take it all? Again, that's where you find out that answer on betonline.net. And it doesn't just stop with our major sports. Also, we talk about specialty sports like MMA and golf. You can find out information there too. If you're a novice, all good. If you're a pro, an expert, all good. Because guess what? An expert or a novice can get the information they need with all the podcasts that are available through the betonline.net family. So check that out, betonline.net, because that is where the game starts.
Like I mentioned before, we talk about Bet Online. Yeah, go. Got a lot of good information just for you. Now, here is what Arthur Smith has to say about when he was asked about the start last year versus this year, and was there any difference?
Progress. We feel a lot better right where we're at offensively after 2 games than we did a year ago, if that's a comparison. Protecting well, pockets have been clean for the most part. We've run the ball relatively well.
I don't disagree with anything he had to say to you when you think about where this team is. And, last year, I think there is a big difference. Now, obviously, the end results are the same. Obviously, you can just look at it from that standpoint. But I think that the Falcons have made progress. Like I said, that's been a word for the past couple of days on this particular show. So I think that Arthur Smith with a pretty decent assessment of where his team is.
I would have to agree. If you look at it from the statistical perspective, there's support for that as well. And it may be minor support, but hey, 4 sacks is 4 sacks is 4 sacks this season after 2 games versus 3 sacks last year. And I feel like still 4 sacks is the tip of the iceberg of what we're going to see from the defense this year, right? Whereas at 3, right, we kind of felt like after 2 games that was indicative of what we were going to see, and we were right because the rest of the way you only got 15. So I think that's one key component as well. The other key is this. We're looking at Tyler Algier for the first time in a regular season game last week, and maybe the yardage wasn't there, but I think you made that great statement that it's not all about the stats or even about the win-loss record. It's about what you saw in him relative to what could have been in game 1 had you had another reliable back behind CP if you didn't want to ride him again. Now you know that you've got somebody that as the season goes on, you can ride. And I think that's especially important because depending on whether you go with Mariota, because we all think that he is what he is, or whether you go with Ritter and you've got to wait for him to trend up. So that means your passing game may take a hit for a minute. Good to have that running game, which I think is in much better shape than last season. I think the O-line is also in better shape than it was last season. So that's another reason why I feel like you're going to see some success, because whoever's behind center or under center, at least we know that person has a fighting chance to actually not be on the ground more than he's standing upright.
And you know what? That was one of the questions that I had coming into the season. Like, what are the surrounding pieces going to look like? Because, we talked about ad nauseum about whether or not it should be Marcus Mariota and Desmond Ridder. And we came to the conclusion that, hey, it should be Mariota. That's what you brought him in for. He's the vet, right? But after these 2 games, I think everybody has come to the conclusion that, you know what? The offensive line has been protecting a little bit better. You know, Marcus Mariota is not necessarily running for his life. Right. Every other down, or he doesn't look like he's on the way to get sacked 40 times like Matt Ryan has did in the last few years. So I think when you have all of those pieces and then you see some consistency in the running game, and those are the 2 things that I think that Arthur Smith wants and needs in order for this team to be successful this year. So I think that those are some of the things that, we're definitely going to have to keep an eye on as the Falcons. They take on the Seahawks. They stay out on the West Coast at 4:25 game. It's a late kick again, so we will definitely keep an eye on that. Another thing have been keeping an eye on is how good Georgia has been looking. Coming up next, though, we're going to discuss whether or not they actually are better than they were last year. Yeah, we know they won a national championship. We'll talk about that next. So ATL Day Ones with Jarvis and T, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome back to ATL Day Ones. I am Tenitra. That is Jarvis. And we appreciate you guys for being our fan base, our supporters. It's nothing like you guys. You leave us great comments. You leave us 5-star reviews wherever you download your podcast. And now we just know that you are going to start watching us now that you can on Amazon Fire and Roku. In fact, you know what? I'm kind of interested to see how it looks on the bright lights myself, so under the bright lights. So I'm going to go check us out on Roku after this show. But you can also continue to watch us on YouTube if that's what works for you, because we're near 4,000 subscribers for this entire Locked On Sports Atlanta network. So just keep supporting us and just know that we appreciate everything that you do. And you know what else we appreciate? We appreciate the effort that Georgia has put forth so far this season. It's been absolutely bonkers what they've been able to do through 3 weeks this season. And so, Jarvis, whenever you got good on good, so to speak, when you look at 2021 versus 2022, you cannot help but make comparisons, right? And that's what everybody's kind of pondering at this point in this early part of the season on whether or not the Dogs of 2022 are better than the Dogs of 2021. But I think that there may be some nuances to that question as well. I don't think it's as cut and dry as a yes or no to that question. So I would say, Jarvis, it's not just, and of course, feel free to answer this question. And you guys feel free to comment in the chat as well. And we'll bring it back to our audience tomorrow to let them know what your feedback is. But the question, guys, is this. You're looking at 2021, you're looking at 2022. Which team is actually better, last year's or this year's? Or when you dig down deeper, who's better, who's worse, and maybe components are better or worse? What do you think?
You know what? The first thing that comes to my mind is I think about how great that defense was last year, right? It was something that was something to see. Those are some of the things that I think that you have to take into consideration when you talk about the way the college football game is played in today's world. It's not necessarily about defense, and it's about offense. It's about, hey, how many points can you put up? How many ways can your offensive coordinator embarrass opposing defensive coordinators? I think that's the thing. That's the way to go, because that's how athletic directors hire, right? Presidents will come. They want to know, hey, how many points can you put up, or how many points have you put up in your past at your previous school when these offensive coordinators are going for these jobs? So I think that, that's the first thing that kind of jumps out to mind. But fast forward this year, the defense has played really well, and it's on pace to, do some things. But there are some chinks in the armor, so to speak, because you would like for them to sack the quarterback more. But it's just a matter of they're just better than everybody they played so far. But I have to talk about the offense. The offense, I think, from 2021 to 2022 is much better this year. And not necessarily because of who they have on the offense. It's because I feel like that Kirby Smart has taken the reins off of this offense, right? Or taking the gloves off for Todd Monken. Todd Monken has earned his trust. He was like, all right, I did it your way last year. Hey, let me open this bad boy up. We have a veteran quarterback, a guy who understands what I'm trying to do on offense, and he's going to be a guy that's going to be able to get the ball out quickly, because that's my plan. That's how I make sure he's safe. He stays safe with these different guys on the offensive line, and how they've been rotating and doing all of what they're doing up front. And while they figure that out up front, here's what I'm going to do, Coach. And I think that Kirby Smart is all in on that plan, and I think that that's why I believe that this team in 2022 has the potential to be better than the 2021 offense, simply because of what the type of talent that you have on your squad. Now you can kind of use that a little bit more, because hey, you always going to keep some good running backs, right? But there are some receivers in that room that you can get the ball to quickly, and those guys can make plays. My main man, Lad McConkey, he's been doing his absolute thing, because you have to be able to do your thing with a name like that, Lad McConkey. So, but yeah, to a long answer for, a short question. Yes, I think that this team potentially could be a little bit better than last year because of those reasons just laid out.
Yeah, I'll give 2021 the nod because they already have the chip. But that's only because they already have the chip.
Right.
Yeah,
Can't predict the future, right?
Yeah, it was a small sample size for 2022. but I love the word potential, and that's what I'm going to stick on this 2022 team. But to break it down a little bit more, I don't know if there's any area where you can actually call Georgia worse than last year, because I just don't see that there's been that much of a drop off anywhere. But like you, I agree that we can definitely say that there's a marked improvement on the offensive side in terms of the aerial attack. And it starts with, like you said, Todd Bunkin allowing Stetson Bennett to do some more things, kind of opening things up, but also a tight end room that is just undeniably better than it was last year, to the point where you don't even miss the likes of a George Pickens, or you don't even think too much about the fact that RBU is not quite RBU as it was last year, getting close though. Same thing on defense. Like, that's a generational defense that we saw last year. That was where the bulk of the 15 dogs that got drafted came from on the defensive side. However, by the end of the season, you never know what you might be saying, because two things come to mind for me. Jalen Carter is still better up front than anybody that got drafted last season, as long as, his body allows him to be as such. And I would venture to say by the end of the season, we will be saying that this secondary, as far as being guided and being grounded by Malachi Starks, you will not be able to, that secondary might at the end of the day end up showing itself statistically, because of Starks, to be the better secondary. Speaking of always getting better, we never have anything bad, worse, or ugly to say about it. That's Coffee AM.
CoffeeAM.com/locked-on is the website that you need to go to. I'm going to tell you why in just a second, because here's the thing. There are some things in life that you have to understand, that you need to delve into, you need to go to, you need to experience. And what I experience when I go through Coffee AM each and every morning is a taste of just going somewhere. It takes me a certain place, right? Because I have the Rainforest Crunch. Oh my goodness, it is so amazing. It hits me. That smell hits me, and then when I hear that the tinkling of the coffee going into my coffee cup, I was like, oh my God, I can't wait for to taste this bad boy. I almost said something that I had to pause after, but I didn't. I'm good. I'm proud of myself. But I think that all of those different type of coffees, like you have the Rainforest Crunch, you have the Kenya K cups, the Tanzania pea berry, all of those different types of flavors and everything that they have for you. It's the best small batch coffee roaster in the entire country. Now, here's the incentive to go to that website that I mentioned earlier. Go ahead and drop in the coupon code box. Locked On, you're going to get 15% off all gift sets and teas and coffee. All of that. You're going to get off your first order, 15% off. CoffeeAM.com/locked-on. Drop in the coupon code box Locked On, and you're going to get 15% off. Go ahead and pull up on the best small batch coffee roaster in the entire country.
Yes, and when Jarvis talks about Coffee AM that way, it's almost like you can smell the coffee being brewed, and that's up in the north area, North Atlanta, North Georgia. So it's almost like you can get it all the way here on the south side or the east side. That's actually a good aroma. Not so much a good aroma coming from Midtown right about now.
Over in the flats.
What Georgia Tech is doing over there. Ooh, man, not a good look at all. We talk about Georgia being absolutely amazing and arguably even better at the end of the day than they were last year. Georgia Tech, however, it almost feels like in moments, Jarvis, that they have actually regressed. And we're at a point right now where there's growing sentiment that Geoff Collins' days are indeed numbered at Georgia Tech. So you look at it and you say, what, if anything, can even be done at this point for Collins to save his job?
Nothing. Because when you think about how he's structured this program, I can't say built, because it's not really like you don't have anything. The product has been very bad, these past 3+ years. So and I think how he structured his program, you went through the whole marketing campaign for the Four, and then the Waffle House Cups, and you got a lot of people excited initially, and you literally sold people on what you were going to do for this team. Now, in the beginning, that started to work for you because you had that grace as far as the product on the field, and then you're going to take some time to transition out of the whole Paul Johnson era, and you kind of joked at that, right? Like, hey, it's gonna take some time, to get, be able to run a real offense. You know what I'm saying? Right. The middle school offense or whatever you want, however you refer to it as. So I think that when you have all of those determining factors, and it doesn't come to fruition, like there are reasons to say, hey, there's nothing you can do, and hey, you just buying time at this point. But I think that, when you talk about, and that was kind of, doing some research, I was just looking at like some of his record. Like he's only won 10 games in 3+ years.
Yes.
And 2 of those wins against FCS schools, T.
Yeah.
Like, so, then you're losing to Northern Illinois, you're losing to the Citadel. Like, it's just has been an embarrassment. And like from alumni to former players, everybody feels the same way. So I think that there's nothing you can do. And I think that it's not a matter of if Geoff Collins gets fired, it's a matter of when he gets fired.
It is definitely a matter of when he gets fired. And for whoever comes in, whether that is an established name like we've been hearing in the news and kind of rumblings of them considering Deion Sanders, or would Urban Meyer come, or would John Gruden come. So whether they try to go after an established coach or whether they go after a coordinator who's on the come up, like a Todd Monken, just as an example, like a coordinator who has had success and is having success at a big time program, and someone who will desperately need to cut into the juggernaut that's known as Georgia recruiting, like UGA recruiting, that's really what's going to determine whether or not this program is ever relevant again, or is relevant in the near future. So whoever gets that gig once Geoff Collins departs, that's going to be a tall order. But when you think about a tall order, it seemed like just 24 hours ago, the NBA, and for that matter, the WNBA, had a tall order for getting rid of something that doesn't smell so right in their ranks, but it looks like they may be on their way to getting back on the good foot. We'll talk about that in For the Culture.
Final segment of ATL Day Ones with Jarvis and Tenitra. We want to say thank you for rocking with us through the entire show. We really appreciate you. We thank you as we are headed towards 4,000 subscribers. We really appreciate you for all of you who have hit that subscribe button. If you have not, what are you waiting on? If you want to be great in life, sometimes you just got to step out there. So go ahead and hit that button. Hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and wherever you download your podcast, give us a 5-star review. We really appreciate it. Drop them in the comments as well. If you're watching us on YouTube, we thank you in advance. Now, but T, this is For the Culture. It is the intersection between sports, culture, and entertainment. And sometimes we want to talk about, because that's just how we get down on this particular show. Today is no different. It's because Robert Sarver, owner of the Phoenix Suns and the Phoenix Mercury in the WNBA, has come out, released a statement about that he will be seeking buyers for those particular teams. Now, for those you don't know who've been hiding under the rock, Robert Sarver just recently got suspended for a year from the NBA and had a $10 million fine. And obviously there were a lot of people calling for his neck. Like everybody, trying to call for his neck. And then Adam Silver kind of essentially pushed back and said, hey, there's not really much we can do. Or do y'all have a video of him saying all of this stuff? That may push the needle. But, Sarver has come out and said in a statement that, hey, he is seeking buyers for the Phoenix Sun and Phoenix Mercury. T, how big is that?
It's the right thing to do, because when you think about an owner who owns a WNBA team, and many of the allegations are what he did and what he perpetrated on women, all of it just speaks wrong, especially if you know anything about the WNBA and some of the social stances that they have taken over the years and how supportive they are of women's rights and equality and positivity in the workplace. Everything he did, and we say allegedly, but there's evidence, maybe not video, that the commissioner for NBA Commissioner Adam Silver intimated, but there's evidence. And how can you keep someone like that, especially at the helm of the Mercury, flying in the face of all that is going on? I mean, the Mercury have had enough to deal with trying to keep everything together with Brittany Griner, and then even losing Skylar Diggins-Smith towards the end of the season for whatever reason. And now you've got to deal with this. That's just too much, and for no good reason. Now, as far as the Suns are concerned, similarly, you just don't want that type of smoke. People have been kind of looking at that organization anyway, especially with the on-the-court product, and wondering, how are they going to get over the hump, if they ever get over the hump? You don't need a distraction in the box. You just really don't. If you can just move on from someone like that, and let me just say this as well. Let's be real. There are a lot of owners out here who've done and said similar things. He just happens to be one that got caught.
Right.
However, if you are the one that got caught, then you need to pay the consequences and be, unfortunately, kind of the poster child for the rest of the owners of what not to do. So that maybe if some of them have had that behavior in the past, they can stop. Or if there are potential owners who even remotely thought about having similar behaviors, maybe you'll think twice about it.
No doubt about it, because that's the thing that, when you think about, overall, like when people who have a lot of money, and particularly old white men, that's what we're dealing with in this particular situation. So it's kind of like when you have these type of situations, like I kind of feel Adam Silver, like, hey, what can I do? In today's world, like, you need hardcore evidence, because nobody's going to believe that people are racist. Like, seemed to be the one thing that, no, there's no way he's a racist. Like you just know his heart and know all of his intentions, and even Sarver in the beginning, he was denying a lot of the things that he said. Yeah. I've only said the N-word one time. Like, one thing that I know about people who use the N-word that are not supposed to use it is that more than likely they use it a lot more times than you've heard them use it. So yeah, let's go and get that out the way. But I think that when you have a situation where he at least has some human decency and say, you know what, I have a big ego and I don't like being talked about in this manner. So, yeah, I'm about to go ahead and cash out on my billions of dollars when I sell these two organizations. I hate to put it like that, T, but that's exactly what it is.
Right, but you speak volumes with that one word, billions, because when those other owners started looking at the math of it all, no different than with Donald Sterling, and tarnishing the reputation of the NBA that continues to build its brand globally, you just don't want that kind of smoke. So I suspect that while there may not have been evidence in a visual form, I suspect that by the time those other 29 owners, the principal owners of those other teams on the NBA side and the other 11 owners on the NBA side, WNBA side had a little say so, they were looking at their bottom line and saying, especially for the NBA, this will affect our bottom line. And for the WNBA, he flies in the face of everything we stand for. And that's somebody like I said when we were pre-briefing earlier, apply pressure.
Yes, indeed. And I love what Draymond Green said. Like, hey, have the guys vote on it. So we'll know and reveal all of these people who voted. Reveal the votes. Reveal the votes. Excuse me. So yeah, that's the type of stuff. Accountability matters in these particular situations, because, like you said, there's a lot of money and power involved, and in order for those guys to be held to the same standard that they hold their players, there has to be something in there that kind of say, all right, if I do this or say this, this is what will happen. And I think that, with Sarver, saying, hey, I'm going to go ahead and sell this team, good for you. Right. Good for you. That's all I got to say. All right, but T, before we get out of here, got to talk about Javier Baez. Obviously, went down to Puerto Rico with Hurricane Fiona. It hit touchdown on Sunday. It was a lot of just grief and people dealing with losing power. And it was just a lot going on down there. And I think that Javier Baez, this is his home country, or native country, excuse me. He, has set up to where people can go out and eat for free. And he posted it on, I think it was on Instagram. And that, hey, if you guys are looking for a hot meal, go check this place out. And I think that for somebody to be able to give back in that manner, to their native country, where they come from, I think it's just absolutely amazing. And this is the type of stuff that we want to be able to talk about on this show more so than the owner, doing what he did.
Yeah, and so important as well was the immediacy with which Javier Baez actually brought aid. Because one of the things that you have to do is kind of get in there early and stay in there often. So I hope this is just one of many efforts from him and maybe other players of Puerto Rico set around just Major League Baseball, but some of the other professional leagues as well. Because a lot of times when players, owners, coaches actually stand up and highlight a situation, it does get more attention. Let's just be real. We're talking about it because it was Javier Baez, right? So this is a good thing for him to go in early and make sure everybody's aware of just what's going on. If you haven't seen the videos, check them out. because it's going to take Puerto Rico a minute to recover from this. I mean, as a native New Orleanian whose family went through Hurricane Katrina almost 20 years ago and Hurricane Ida just a year ago, it's he's shining a spotlight early. I hope that the spotlight is shown on Puerto Rico often because listen, the process of healing and recovery that's going to be there for the long haul. So thanks again for Javier Baez doing what he did. And again, you guys go everywhere you can, Google Puerto Rico. I am sure there's going to be some way, shape, or form that you can help because they're going to need it for a while. No different in Jackson, Mississippi, who need our help as well. Hopefully tomorrow we will be talking about the Braves needing any will win this game. Hopefully the man special that has just haunted them all season, hopefully they'll be able to get it done against a pitcher and Paulo Espino, who's 0-7 this year. Let's make him 0-8. Jarvis and I'll download about it in the afternoon on Thursday and hopefully talking about Jarvis, a perfect homestand for the Braves. And of course, we'll talk a little bit more about the Falcons as they get set to take on the Seahawks and anything else that happens in the wide, wide world of sports in Atlanta. So as always, once you finish checking us out, make sure you check out Hitting Hard with John Chucker, and you can do it on YouTube. You can do it where you download your podcast, Amazon, Fire, or Roku. Thank you guys again for stopping by. See you tomorrow.
Y'all come back now, you.